Hello, day 2 of the AI empowering leadership, personalize your own AI assistant, right? That's kind of what we're doing here. I'm going to kick off immediately with our our session here. So I'm just going to make sure that you can all see my screen and it's kind of in good visibility on your end. So this, of course, we started with this yesterday, just to kind of quick recap what we're doing in these 5 days. So each day I will have mentioned a little bit of research. I always like to have a bigger picture and then kind of hone in on things. There will be interactive exercises, activities for you to do. We can do this in the sessions and certainly away from the sessions. So there will be extra time kind of for you to do that, implement. And yesterday we were looking at kind of your style. We didn't dig into the specific of that leadership style, which we'll go into later on. But the key thing is that what we want to be able to do is have our settings have the right settings so it understands who we are. And I'll say a little bit more about that as well. So day 2, this is where we are at the moment. And we will be talking a little bit about why have this automation process in kind of setting up this, kind of setting your, customizing your GPT, if you like. So tomorrow we'll be building on this. And what I'm going to be asking today is to start collecting data or information about what you would like to have in your assistant. So there'll be a little bit of like, okay, the assistant's going to be doing this, so what do I need? So you may have templates that you're going to be using, and so that will help in creating your assistant. So I'll set a task later on. So we'll be checking that on day 4 to see if it really aligns with your voice. Is it able to respond to some of those questions that you put in there? And then, of course, there'll be day 5 showcase, and there's going to be a prize as well, day 5. Again, just to kind of reiterate, no experience needed. It's a lot of this is, where these are basics, but actually basics make it that much more different. And I always like to go back to kind of working out what is it that I need to be doing. As I was using that example, Chris, when you came in about that lady who's doing quite advanced things with GPT, but actually she's missed some of the foundational stuff, like she hadn't really done a setting. So it's scraping stuff off the internet that actually she's getting the information that maybe it's not helping her. So getting that right from the beginning really helps. So so you'll have access to your GPT, which is the one we're going with. And so now you will have customized this. Okay. So the customized setting, as we said, so now that you know how, it's about doing it now. So I was like, yay, right, you know how to do it. So we're definitely we're gonna start immediately, and we'll come back and you'll reiterate, you'll kind of like go back and change it, iterate the process, should I say. And here, this is the bit like tomorrow I'm going to go through really clear instructions on what it is that you need to be adding into creating that customized GPT for yourself, so that you like your assistant. So you've got that, and then you can evoke that in conversations as well, and then you'll be able to create many more. So yeah, we'll go on to testing it. You'll get some feedback, and so you'll know kind of what we're doing next. So, okay, so yesterday, what we were looking at is, so we're on day 2, is why did we customize our ChatGPT? So the key reasons why we're doing this is basically we want it to do certain things that for us, right? It's designed and tailored for our needs. That's going to be key. And I think that's the bit where what tends to happen is away from the generic ambiguity that kind of ChatGPT might kind of bring up. We want it to kind of be customized for ourselves. That's kind of key. There's no fluff. There's like direct advice, and it kind of takes out those unnecessary kind of info details. And it knows what to prioritize. That's also the other thing is, right, it matters the most to you. And we're going to be looking at how we can save time. I've got a couple of examples I'll share with you as well. So personal touch, it speaks your language and it's kind of understands your goals. So that's why you might go back and change it, but kind of you'll know. So if you're in a leadership role or a management role, you kind of like have those goals and they will, of course, change, but it kind of understands how you want your GPT to kind of converse. And I'll show you how it does it for me. And of course, it helps with productivity and helps you act and, yeah, make decisions quicker. So, yeah, this is what we shared yesterday. So the reason behind that is it kind of understands the thought process, the reasoning behind the response. So this monologue, kind of the tag that we used yesterday. So why are we doing so what is it about this? Kind of looking at day 2. So we're looking at automating tasks, so in a leadership role, and you'll learn how to apply your customization to handle key tasks and content creation as well, communication and data analysis. These are some of the things by the end of today, you'll be like, okay, I'll be able to do this so that it frees up my time to focus on other things as well. So like I was saying yesterday, it won't take away our jobs. In fact, it will give us our time to do the kind of important things that we want to be doing. Okay. So before we carry on, what are your expectations? What would you like from this session today? So let me call out to Jamie, and you can pop it in the chat if you like. Jamie, what about you? What would you like? What are you expecting from today's day? Jamie stepped away. Let's see. Okay. We'll call on Jamie in a moment. Okay. Okay, Chris, what about yourself? What would you like to get out of today?
I guess I'm pretty open. Because this is I mean, I use ChatGPT every day, but I suppose I'm doing this to see how I can make it more efficient. And I've noticed myself having to like type a lot of repetitive things, like talking this way. And sometimes I've even said like, okay, rephrase that, but use the English language spelling, not the USA English. So even your tips from yesterday, I saw there was actually in the settings, you just click a button into what specific language you want. So yeah, I'm just excited just to learn more today.
Brilliant. Yes, yeah. And that's the thing as well. You can actually do that where you can have it British English, like I said, and you'll see I've gone from I've got English spellings on here, I've got American English on here, and I ended up naming my company Leaderized Spelling, which is English in American English version, and that was the reason behind that was because the British English version had been taken.
Oh
so
yeah.
so yeah, I always think, wow, if it shows up as like those spelling things, it's okay, yeah. But you're right. But in terms of the setting, 100%, if you can get it to kind of align with the language and it's consistent. I always say, is it consistent? And you'll
Yes.
find that I'm not being totally consistent here, but that's okay. I realize that, and you can go into ChatGPT and ask it to do that. But then occasionally, because of the company name, I'm like, okay, does it really, like, okay, I'm going to let that go. So there might be things that you think, okay, I'm going to let that go. But yeah, having sort of voice is really clear, and, keen and absolutely key in how we relay our messages. Paul, what about for you? Is there something specific that you'd like from today? And you can pop it in the chat. That's absolutely fine too. We might get Jamie back on in a moment. So yeah, we'll find out from him. Okay. And you can pop it in the chat. That's absolutely fine, Paul, if you like. Okay. So hopefully you're there. So yeah, so the trends, This is a huge one for me because actually one of the things in business, I always say, you've probably heard that expression as well, trend is your friend. With everything that's going on in AI, we're kind of at the start of what's going on. And like I was saying, I always like to have a bigger picture of like what's going on in, because we can get kind of caught up with all the kind of things that are going on with ChatGPT, but like take a step back and think, okay, what tool am I using? And I always like to bring this into my training. I think it kind of helps to kind of think in the sort of get a bigger picture. Certainly we're seeing from this research here, this is kind of the latest, one of the recent research papers here, where we're getting these more advanced tools, which we're working on in this challenge, is the one we're looking at. And so yesterday we talked about generative AI, and we're seeing this much more with Google. So with their Gemini, with Gemini, and there are obviously other tools you will have heard of, like you will have heard, there's many of these out there that you may have heard of with regards to creating images. Perhaps you know that one. So I may be getting something from Paul. Okay. So, okay, no worries. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Jamie. Yeah, I'm going to come on to that as well with regards to the task we set. Okay, so once I've done this, I'll come back to that's a really good point because we started talking about it right before Paul came in, but that's a really good point, and I'll double check that as well. So yeah, and yeah, so we've got audios, we've got video, you've got AI, we've got many of these coming through as well. 11 Labs, you may have heard of. So yeah, we're getting a lot of what they're all kind of thousands of these generative AI tools out there. And so with OpenAI and ChatGPT, that's kind of what we said we'll hone in on. And we'll see this, we'll see a kind of growth in this as well. So there's so much potential, but there's also concern at the moment with AI and people asking questions about like, okay, what's that going to mean for society, for us being humans? There's lots of conversations around that. But like I was saying, it amplifies, it kind of let's use it to complement us rather than replace us, and use it to kind of raise awareness. And it's like any tool that goes in the hands of individuals, how we use it as well, knowing how one uses it. So yeah, in the US, we've got it's leading top AI models, but China is actually dominating in its AI patterns with you'll see as well. And then you'll see many of these emerging. Okay, so there's a lot more investment, as you'll see, in generative AI, but actually overall in that bigger picture of AI, we're seeing a slight decline. Okay, so we're going to come back to our challenge. Okay, and what we'll see is how we start standardizing processes and regulations as we're in this leadership role, because that's like what I'm working with individuals there, looking at what do we do for us, for our challenge here. What I'd like us to be thinking about is the task that we set yesterday. So I'm going to come back to that before we continue. So Crest, I just want to know, so you can say yes, no to this, and you can pop in the chat. Settings, we're all good with the settings now. So I think Jamie kind of alerted that, yeah, let's check that. Jamie, can I just double check you've done yours as well? And Paul, have you got your settings set up? Let's have a look. All good, settings, still exploring more. Okay. Yeah, not yet. Okay. So expectations get it close. I haven't checked. Okay, refine yesterday somewhere. Yeah, definitely. Not yet. And Paul, is there anything you're wanting to ask about the settings, or is it you haven't got round to doing it? So it's something we can help with, and because this is a good place to kind of say, I missed that text, or there's something I'm missing from yesterday. That will be great. I'm more than happy to put that in. Sometimes it's knowing what information to include in that. It's like, what do I include in, in my ChatGPT so it understands me. Remember, when we create our assistant, that's going to be very specific, but this is kind of you and understanding. So ChatGPT understands you as the person, Paul, and how you want it to kind of relay your message, you know, when is the output. So what is the output as opposed to kind of like generic and general info. So yeah, if there's anything there, by all means, please reach out, and you know, it'd be good to get it set up. You know, ideally get it set today. We'll catch up on the free plan. Okay, error on payment page. Okay, yeah. So I had someone else actually. They were supposed to join. They hadn't got the paid version either. So I'll double check how they got on with GPT-4. Yeah, it might be have a check, and if there's any issue with that, then definitely let me know. So okay, so let's continue with this part. So we've looked at definitions, of course, ChatGPT. We know that it can automate tasks, things like communication, providing data-driven insights. And I'm going to show you an example of what I did a few moments ago. And what I'm going to be asking you to do is also start, once you've created your settings, or you've completed that, you can start testing it for yourselves immediately to see, is it doing the thing I want it to do? So what I did earlier on, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share what I did in terms of my, so I'll go into my ChatGPT. Let's get that up first. Maybe that's what I need to do first, then I can share. Okay. So yeah, so what I did earlier on today, so some of you might already be doing this. Chris, perhaps you're doing this as well. Paul, you may be, and I'm sure, Jamie, you may already be doing this. So I did a little thing where before I even go into thinking about creating my, my assistants here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to test that it understands me, right? Based on the settings which we set here yesterday. Okay. So what I ended up doing, and say if you've done this already, I didn't need to give it too much information, right? All I did in my prompt was I put, the client has raised a concern about the timings of our session, respond to Keith using this framework, right? That's all I did, right? I didn't have to type in my message. I didn't need to do any of that. Okay. But what it did immediately after that, it shows me from my settings that it's going to create this in the monologue kind of entry in that tag that we added into our customized settings here. And then what it then says to me is I will structure the response to Keith by using these following steps outlined, right? So I'll show you the document that I uploaded, and it was, so it was a framework, how I want it to write the email, and how I pin that in there. So you may be doing this. You may be using this pin that you upload the document. I just want to double check that you're all using that, okay, as a starter to test that your settings have been set up so that when you're pinning anything like a framework, that it kind of understands that's the framework you want to use. I didn't need to say much actually beyond that bit, okay? And this was what it drafted as an email to Keith, okay? So it was quick. I didn't need to kind of go into detailed prompting because I'd already kind of put in my framework, and it was able to generate this letter or an email, let's say, okay? So, and I didn't need to write my name because it knows who I am there. So again, just adjusting our session timing. Dear Keith, thank you for raising the concern, your concern about timings. You might adjust it a little bit, but actually, like as a first thing, it's doing quite well, right? So let me just double check that. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. How many of you are using the pin in or uploading documents using in ChatGPT? Let me just ask. Jamie, are you using that? Are you using? Did you kind of follow what I was doing? Let's see if Jamie's there. Okay, we've got. Okay, thank you, Chris. So yes, so you've been uploading docs as well. Not yet using it, not sure what it is. Okay, great. So yeah, so what it is, thank you for pointing that out. So, oh, I have uploaded documents. Yes, yeah. So yeah, so in that you can upload a document and what pin is, yeah. So yeah, the pin sign is like uploading documents. Okay, I'll show. So sometimes it's that language as well. Do we have Lisa here? Is that Lisa? It might be Lisa. Hopefully. Okay. And yeah, but thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, so just kind of coming back to that point. So it just when I use this pin, yeah, I don't know. I just pin or like upload if it shows up on your screen there. Okay. So that's basically from uploading this document. Okay. And so all I did was I went into my settings. I just went into where my document was. And so if I had anything on my desktop or even the most recent ones, I would just upload that email. Let me just go back to the most recent one. And it was the email that I wanted and email concerns. This was my document. Okay. And so I just uploaded that document. It's a framework. And what the actual document shows is the steps I want it to do. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll show it to you so that you have it as well. So you'll see, so that it actually makes sense as opposed to kind of me sort of saying it. Okay. Okay, so I'll show you what my document was. Okay, so hopefully that's Lisa. Is that Lisa in there? Okay. Let's see. Erica. Hey.
It's me, it's Erica.
How are you? Good to see you. Okay. So yeah, so this is kind of what I uploaded. Okay. So, and you might be thinking, what is that? And so I created a template which I did using ChatGPT, right? And so I wanted the information. So the information I have here, I wanted to understand the way I wanted my emails to be structured. And so what it did, this text, what this is called in the language of like programming, it's called a markdown text. So sometimes what you'll see these asterisks. So what I just did was I created a framework and I got it to actually create my framework for me. So I gave it an email and then I asked it to create a markdown format for me that I just then use if I'm writing an email. So I'll go into a couple of those steps. So this is kind of what it started understanding is my assistant email will write, dear whoever it is, Keith, and understand there's some issues with our coaching session. There's a conflict there. It will also put my name in there. And so it aligns with what I've already inputted into my settings. So it kind of understood. And by the way, this is all part of the settings we did yesterday. I didn't have to tell it this. I just said, use my customized settings. And I want to create a template and that you know, clients have concerns about timings that I can use. And I actually didn't even put that much information in, and it created a template which I can use and upload. So it was a little bit more detailed than perhaps I need to be, but actually in terms of writing email, all I need to do is just say there's a concern from Keith about timings, and it will just create that email. So what I would do is I want you to start thinking about the things that you would like your assistant to do. So this was an example in a chat, but what I'd like us to be thinking about, what can my assistant do that will help me save time? Okay, so that was just one example that I used today that helped me shortcut my email writing. Okay, that was a little bit of information. There was quite a lot of information in that, but that became my template. That markdown text is only because that's the kind of language that, you know, ChatGPT kind of understands, and sometimes it'll produce text in that way. And we don't always need to have it, but I asked it to produce it in that way, so that when it kind of writes an email, it just inserts the name in there. But yeah, I hope that was okay in terms of like understanding where the shortcuts were. But yeah, I did have to kind of I needed to think about that before I can then instruct it to do the thing that helps me save time. Hope that makes sense. Is that clear, or is that like, has that thrown you a little bit, or is that, I just want to make sure you got questions about that, not using. If you like, what I'll do is I'll add the document in here. I'll add the document so you can see what that was. So like, rather than me spending like a long time going through this, you'll get that document, the one I was just using, so you can see what that was doing. What I'd like everybody to do is to start testing the customization that they've done. Okay, so let me see if I can add it in there. It's a little bit slow my end. Okay, it's got it. Okay, so that document that I just shared on the screen, rather than spend lots of time going through it, you'll see that it's created an email outline the way I like to be able for people, like for myself, to write an email that it can be quick. Okay, so if you have a look at that will help kind of understand like what I'm referring to there. But please stop me if it's not clear, or if it's a little bit like, oh, okay, what did she do there? What was that all about? It was just getting it to speed up the email process. So one of the things that I mentioned in here in terms of like the challenge. So if I'm thinking about saving, so example process, these are the steps that he has. Okay, so and what I like about it, it's short, it's quick. All I had to do is put one liner, and then it produced that. Okay, looks like it stopped sharing my screen for some reason. Just want to double check you can all hear. And yeah, great seeing you, by the way, Erica. It's really great having you on too. Okay, so I think, let me just double check. It seems to be stopping my share. Let me just double check that you can see. Okay, I would like to stop it. Let me just come out of it. Okay. Okay. By the way, stop me if I'm going quickly or it's not clear. Just kind of stop and say, I've never done that. I'm not sure. I'd rather that it sort of serves you. So this is the key. This is kind of why I want us to go through this as well. So yeah, so what can we do? We can draft newsletters. We can create blog posts. We can have like internal communications. And what I just did was just look at how it can standardize an email inquiry really quick. And that's as quick, but I needed the document. So that was the key thing. I needed something that it would understand how I wanted my email to be written, because it's not going to know, right? You've got to feed it that information. So all the other things you can do is you've got data summary, report generation. It generates reports, detailed sort of like detailed reports, and actually looks at trends as well. You can get it to create agendas, summaries for meetings based on your sort of leader's input. If you've got a meeting, it enables you to kind of summarize those points. And I've got a couple of things based on what Jamie was saying as well. Your GPT can generate tailored social media posts. I've definitely been using it for that, and sort of allows you to have active presence online, and with very little minimal effort as well. So what in a moment I'll ask you what are you using it for. You can personalize your communication, as we've seen, get feedback as well, and motivate people. I can show you a couple of case studies where you're able to do that, where it can go through different scenario settings too, which is great. And yes, and you can look at sort of making those informed decisions. Now, what I'd like us to be thinking about before I do anything else, because otherwise it could be me speaking, and I'd love to hear, what is it that you want your GPT to be doing? I know, Cress, you said that you're already using it. What is it that you want it to be doing so that will help you? So we can really tailor it to this. Sort of like social media posts. Okay, great. So Jamie's saying social media posts primarily. Okay. What about you, Paul? What are you needing it to do? So you can add it in there. I know Erica's on the move because she's got, I know you've got an appointment, you mentioned that. But yeah, any kind of info on what you're using it for, what is it that Crest, you said that you're using it at the moment. What is it that you're using it for?
I use it for a range of things at the moment, so I would love to, maybe it would make sense just to create multiple assistants for different subject areas. Does that make sense? Is that the most efficient thing to do? What do you think?
Yeah.
Because just to give you a little bit of background, I have a digital marketing business, so I'm dealing with different clients and their different digital marketing needs within that.
Yes, yeah. I would definitely do that. So once you've been able to create one, you'll be able to create multiple like assistants to help you 100%. So giving that kind of example of like that text, what you could start doing is collecting example writings. So for example, if you're writing blogs, do you have like a framework that you're using? If you're So use that framework. That could be something as one assistant. So you're going to be focusing on one for this week, because that's what I'll be kind of wanting you to do. But so yeah, 100%. You can then have multiple like assistants for different tasks. So for example, if we're writing and we're creating copy, we might bring a copywriter in. We may bring in a marketing voice. And so we want to be able to input that information into a document, but rather than have them all in these temporary chats, in fact, in these threads, because temporary chat, I've switched that off because they're in the thread, so they do stay there. As you've been doing, from what I understand, is you've got a lot of these conversations, so you're having to kind of go through each conversation each time. The thing to do is create that number one assistant and start thinking, what is that assistant going to help me do? Is it to create a blog? And so get a framework. So maybe you've got examples of blog text that you've written. So what I'll be asking you to do is start collating those and having them ready, so that when you have your assistant, you can then evoke your assistant to kind of create that copy for you, if you like, that framework. And then you can add, say, the title to that, then it will save time, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah. So that might be, so that's going to be, you know, thinking about what is it that I want it to do. So you know, I think that Paul said not sure yet, just exploring what it can do, probably social media posts as well. So yeah, like from social media posts, it's fantastic. So of course you can access Dali on ChatGPT as well, so you can create images, but it's also getting the right prompts to create the type of image. But the key thing is, from what I'm hearing, is it's mainly social media posts and also kind of email response templates as well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so you can actually, funny enough, that's what you can do. You can have your template. You can have an example of an email, like examples of emails if you like, and then maybe pick one and then say, based on this, create a markdown format, you know, framework of this, and it will see what it produces for you, because that was basically what I framed it on. That's what I did with mine, and it gave me that kind of outline, and that's what I used. And so it recognized I'm a coach. It recognized who I am, because I didn't need to tell it that, because I already did that yesterday in the settings. So, but the actual structure is going to be different. Say for an email, for other types of correspondence, possibly you're going to have a framework that differs. So yeah, so definitely just one for this week, because you'll be collecting, thinking, well, what info do I need in that, you know, for my system? What is it that I need to be able to collect and add to it? So we'll be talking about the type of files that you'll need for each of those systems. Yeah. So Paul, yeah, Paul's looking at social media posts too. Yeah, 100%. So content for social media posts, business writing. Thanks, Erica. Blog and newsletter. Fantastic. So yeah, so there's quite a few of the points that we were already discussing there. Like, okay, I want it to do a lot of this stuff, and I want it to save time. Okay, and so yeah, so we could look at the, you know, we could say, okay, I want my assistant to do this. So that's what I want you to be able to do, kind of following this session. You know, be able to say, I want my assistant to do this. And then what we need to think about is what's that voice, what's that thing we need to feed it, so that we can then evoke our system when we're having conversations in GPT. So one of the things that Jamie raised yesterday was that he wants to be able to create summaries from text. So what I did then is I started going into this a little bit more today, based on our conversation yesterday, and looking for different steps that we'd want if we're looking at text. So we want to be, if I've got lots of text, I want to know, is it going to be relevant? Can it summarize? So what I found that if we do some of these things, like step one, we've got that text, right? We've identified the text that we're going to be using. Okay, we want to summarize the text. I would actually, you know, yesterday we said there were a few issues with summarizing text. I'd go a little bit further and say what I want in the summary. So what's the purpose of this summary? Because what it does is, if you say summarize this text, it's not going to really understand what it is that you want it to do. So be a little bit more specific on what you want it to do. You want it to highlight some key points. You want it to identify trends, whatever it is. You say that in the text, right? And then input the text into GPT, copy the text into GPT, and you know, and then you've got your detailed key points. Summarize, ask it to do that, and always check for accuracy as well. So sometimes what it does is it will produce it won't complete the summary. So always go back and check that. That's going to be the one thing that I would definitely say it's key, because although we're using GPT to do all these things, but you know, it has, there are errors, right? So it's our job as you know, kind of like lead thinkers to really think and say, you know, is this accurate? Is this complete? Am I happy with this? I'm happy to put my name against this. So refine it, check for clarity, the prompt as well, and give it a rerun, right? And then finalize, edit for clarity again, and then you might get, you know, get the feedback for future summaries. If you find that process works, you could then create this as something that you use, and that might be something that you say, you know, when I'm creating summaries, this is kind of what I want it to do, so that you, Chris, you don't, like, for example, you said you starting again at the beginning, so it's like the first principles. Yesterday we talked about that example of the Ford car. We wouldn't go back to the really beginnings of that. We want to start where we are. So once we have this, we're happy with the kind of structure or the format, then let's just use that format and let's train the model to so that it understands what we want it to do in terms of its output. Otherwise, it's a little bit like we're starting over again, and that's exhausting, and we want to avoid that. Okay, so yeah, that was a little thing that I thought about today, and then you could create your templates based on that, and start kind of training the model so it kind of understands how you know, kind of how you want it to kind of output this information as well. Okay, so I just want to double check before I go on to the refining there. Does that make sense? Has anyone got any questions? Because I've like given you just to kind of recap, we mentioned kind of where the certain trends are at the moment. We mentioned also that we want to customize our chat GPT, and Erica, what I'll do is, I know you're on your phone, what I'll do is I'll share that text that we used yesterday. It's in the it's not in the, you'll see it in the recording, but you won't be able to grab that from the recording. I'll share that text so that when you customize your chat GPT, you can insert it and then amend it. And then at the top of that, you'll obviously put in what you're doing as an interior designer. So yeah, that bit you'll be able to kind of just insert your information, but the other bit about monologue, where it's kind of getting, you know, where it does the thought and reasoning, you want to be able to put that. I can share that via email. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, fantastic. Before I carry on, have you got any other questions about what I just mentioned? Anything that you think, oh, okay, I've got that, but I'm not like, okay, she said that, but what does she mean by that? I'm always happy to kind of answer those questions there. So in terms of where we are now, okay, we want to be able to, so, you know, what I want for all of us is to review your customization settings, okay? So if you're feeling like you're happy with it, then what you'll see is what I did was where it kind of at the top of when I sort of go into my chat GPT, where it kind of shows monologue and the way it kind of thinks. Remember, it's our intern, we're training it. It kind of gives me a summary of what I've already inputted into the settings. So I really want you to test that out for yourselves to see if it kind of understands your voice, what you inputted yesterday, or, you know, Paul's working on his because he's got the other version still, but once you do that, you can test it. Jamie, have you tested yours out, and is that working for you?
So I've tested it, but I think as I apply each different type of content I'm looking for, I've got to continually kind of test before I trust it.
Okay, but it understands that you want it to think in this way. Does it give you like a summary at the top, like I showed you, like, you know, when I got it to?
Yeah.
It does do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of understands kind of from a overarching point that, yeah, Jamie wants this, you know, kind of process in place before moving on. But yeah, all the other things like uploading templates or creating your assistant, that obviously is going to require a little bit more input from our part before it kind of starts understanding what it is specifically we want from it. But yeah, so basically refining that process and adjusting the settings further. If you find that it's not creating an email or it doesn't understand, say, the way you want it to do that initially, even if it's like a simple email, or understands like, okay, this is an email from Paul, for example, does it kind of pick that up? But once you've saved it, it should do that. It'll pick that up and it will know, and it would definitely save time. Okay, so yeah, so the practical application is definitely the settings point is the key thing. And so what we're going to start thinking about is, what is our GPT? What do we want it to do? That's going to be the key thing for us, because tomorrow what we're going to be doing is we're going to start building our chat GPT. We're going to start building it. In other words, I'm going to give you some info that you can sort of like, or see an example. By the way, when I give you this example, you can use it like I have, or you can say, I want it slightly different for what I'm doing. That's absolutely fine too. However, and then what I'd like us to think about is, what text am I going to use to support that? And I'll show you in a moment what I mean by that is, you'll start seeing that there are texts that we upload that it understands what I want it to do. So as Crest was saying, I might need multiple like assistants that I can call on 100%, right? So you might have quite a few, because if you've got that info, why not? So yeah, so practical application, you've done the customization process, you've set them, so you've done that, so that's key. So is it going to be drafting a newsletter, or is it a report that you want? Start testing it out for yourselves. And I would, if it's something you do regularly and it's something that that, like you keep going back to over and over again, then those are things that you can start automating, and it will save time as well. So these are just some of the examples, like data summaries that you could start adding in there. Like I said, it can like have reports. So if you've got a report structure, if you've got something like that, remember I used to write these business reports. So, we should have a framework and adding data in that. So if you've got something like that as a framework, then that could be something. So it could be my assistants, my business report writer, for example. And so think about what it is that you'd like it to do. And so it is going to require you to start asking yourself, what would I like my assistant to do for me? Okay, because I think the point that we had from, I think, the social media posts that you had, that you're using it for, and then of course we've got blog writing and newsletters as well. Out of all those, which would be your priority, would you say? So I think we've got a few from Erica, and we've got social media posts. Is that your priority number one, Jamie, would you say, social media posts at the moment?
Yes, because it's the simplest and easiest one to make human.
Okay, so you're going to use it for that. So your assistant is going to be your social media creator, or your content creator. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be the name of your, so yeah, that's going to be your assistant. Okay, let's see. Chris, do you have an idea what your number one, your top priority, what your assistant would do for you?
Not yet, but I'm gonna kind of define that now this evening and start with the one that I need most.
Okay, yeah. And say, which one am I using the most? So you'll have that, and if you got sample copies of that, like, and then you can start adding that into building your assistant too. So yeah, Erica says content creator for blogs. Brilliant.
Hey, Bally, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm thinking content for blogging because I find that I can probably get enough content for that and then use that for the social media. You know, like I'm thinking about creating one that will create the most content in a way that it's in my voice, and then create another one that will, summarize and make it like just the most important parts to be social media, like Instagram, LinkedIn, and things like that. So yeah, for me, it will be mainly blogging.
Okay, so from that you'll use it for other mediums as well. Okay, yeah. Okay, so for you, Erica, what I'd suggest is if you've got an example or you've got like a blog piece that you've already written, then have that at hand, because that's going to be helpful when you create your assistant. If you
Yes, what I'll do.
yeah.
Yes, I actually do, because I'm going to be focusing locally. So I have one that I did for Manhattan in general. And then I want to do one for Tribeca, one for the Upper East Side. But I wanted to have that same structure, like art and culture, new buildings, like, so yes, I do have one.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. And the other thing, brilliant. So you've got that, and you're going to have it, you're going to have your name on it. You're going to, remember when we talked about this yesterday, it can be private. Remember, these assistants are private to us so that we evoke them in conversation. These don't need to be shared. This is something that we're using so the kind of model understands how we are creating these content, because it's about generating content that's very specific to what we want it to do, right? So in our voice, that's the key thing with this, is that it kind of understands how we want to produce content. Okay, so for example, in Paul's case, so Paul, you're working on what it is, you might even start having examples of like someone's work that you like, right? So it might be that you're not like you're thinking, okay, I've got an idea of something I want to write, or say I like the way this person produces content, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to replicate that kind of way of doing it, if that makes sense. So like what I did, one example was, I can show you here. So, if I'm going back to my way of writing, is I wanted to learn, right? So I wanted to look at this, I don't know if you can see. So let me just double check in here. So I would evoke my assistants this way, right? So I've got a ghostwriter, I've got Leaderize, I've got Email Mastery by Dean Jackson. So do you know who Dean, do you know him, right? If you know how he writes. So what this is doing is it's writing in the style of Dean Jackson. So I wanted to kind of test it out, and what I would do is I would evoke that, and then I would kind of write an email using his style. So tomorrow I'm going to show you what that style looks like inside the assistant and the information that you could input. So if you have something or someone that you aspire to and you want to use a similar type of writing or creating an email, or you kind of want to use that as a way of saying, you know what, I don't actually have my own style yet. I just want to see who, some of these people, like, what are they doing? So you can train the model to do that, and then you could evoke that in your writing, which I think it's magical, because it means that you can train it in a certain way, so that you can kind of draw on that and say, write in this style. And so you're like, okay, I want it to be that style because I know that style works. So that's where I think is really interesting. So Paul, maybe that's something you might want to do. I've certainly experimented with a few, and it does do that. And I use one, I'll show you a couple tomorrow that I used that I found really helpful. And certainly writing social media content, because there's a way that I want it to relay a message. And I use that style quite a lot because it's short, it's kind of captures the way I want kind of my audience to engage. So so that's a little bit of like what we'll be doing tomorrow. So yeah, so that's fantastic. So yeah, that's like, so it might be that, because often I'm like, I don't really know what I want to be able to like, do I have a framework? Yeah, maybe. But yeah, if you've got that, have a thing, and then I could show you a couple of ways where we can capture some of those examples, and we can create an assistant that uses a framework that we're like, I really like the way that person writes. So yeah, we can definitely look at that. So okay, so homework for tomorrow, please, is like be clear on your assistant, what what your assistant's going to be doing for you, and have sample content ready. And what we'll be doing tomorrow is we'll be building our assistants. So by the end of this week, you will definitely have your assistant, and you will know that you'll be able to create many more moving forward. I hope that's helped today. There was a lot of like information that I might have shared, but if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. You can remember, reach out to me via email, and I'm really excited to see how you all get on, and looking forward to seeing your systems by tomorrow. Hopefully you've got that. Okay, so everyone, have a great rest of your day. Great seeing you, Jamie, Crest, Erica, Paul. Ciao for now. Thank you. Ciao.